My name is Sal Khan. I'm the founder and faculty of the Khan Academy, and we're trying to educate the world.
Welcome to the presentation on Basic Addition. But in August of 1789, they've already done their version of the Declaration of Independence. And the process is called photosynthesis.
I was tutoring my cousins, literally, and I had to kind of figure out a way to scale myself up, so I started recording YouTube videos, and I started making little software modules for them, but I made it so anyone could use them, and started getting a lot of traction.
What Sal Khan has done is amazing. He's taken all this material and broken them down into little 12-minute lectures. I use it myself to remind myself of things. I have children who like it. So I was super happy he came up and we got to talk about where does he go now? How can my foundation help him pursue this dream and connect it up with the other great things going on the internet?
I want it to be a standalone virtual school where anyone in the world who wants to learn anything can go there, start from the basics, progress as far as they need to go, get feedback, get assessment, get practice, and eventually I want it to actually become the operating system for what goes on in the classroom, where every student's allowed to work at their own pace and the teacher actually becomes more of a mentor or of a coach.
So I see Sal Khan as a pioneer in an overall movement to use technology to let more and more people learn things, know where they stand. It's the start of a revolution.
All the videos are all free, openly accessible, www.khanacademy.org.
I think it's a huge contribution. Everybody should check it out.
Thanks for having me here. It's exciting. So I thought I would just tell you how I got here. Really, that video kind of gave you the tidbits of it, but I thought I'd give you a little bit more of the actual experience, and maybe you could start to map your own ideas or your own experiences to what I've been through. It literally started, as the video says, this is in 2004, 2 months after my wedding. My family from New Orleans was visiting me in Boston. My cousin Nadia, who was entering the 7th grade, brilliant girl, you know, we shared DNA, and she you know, could do brain teasers, and, you know, she was beating me at Risk and all of the rest. And then one morning before she woke up, her mom told me that, you know, Nadia, she's a great girl, she gets straight A's, she's super hardworking, but she didn't place into pre-algebra for 7th grade. And she's like, I'm a little worried about that. And I'm like, you should be really worried about that, because if she doesn't place into pre-algebra in 7th grade, she's not going to take algebra in 8th grade, she's not going to take calculus when she's a senior in high school, and she'll never be an engineer, which is clearly the highest calling that anyone could have in life. But with that said, I had gotten an engineering degree, and at this point I was working at a hedge fund, so you have to kind of think about that a little bit. So it made her more worried, which wasn't clearly necessarily a constructive thing to do. But I said, you know, we're going to do something about it. And so when Nadia woke up, I said, hey, Nadia, you're clearly a smart girl. How about when you go back to New Orleans, I'm in Boston, I tutor you. If you're willing to do extra work, we'll figure out a way. We'll get on a conference call, we'll use Yahoo Doodle as kind of a scratch pad and see what happens. And she agreed. And so she went back, and it worked. Literally a month or 2 months into this kind of one-on-one tutoring, she ended up, and actually part of the deal was we were going to try to convince her school to let her retake the actual assessment exam. So 2 months later, and actually I did call their principal and all sorts of things. I was her type A parent for that part of the process, but they let her retake it, and she aced it. She got a perfect on it. And then I started doing it with her brothers. I started having a little cohort of friends and family members all over the country, really. And I had another day job. I was working at a hedge fund, and clearly this was fun for me. You know, when you work at a hedge fund, it's sometimes hard to answer the question, what did you do for society today? And so this was kind of, I do have an answer to that maybe a rationalization, but this was satisfying for me. But the computer scientist in me kept saying, there's got to be a way to scale this. It's working for the 10, 15, or 20, actually, at a point, family members that I had, but it was already getting hard to schedule each other's time. I had a job, they had soccer practice. I started getting, and I never want to compare myself to kind of what I call real teachers, because I got tired the second time that I had to deliver the same lecture. I was like, oh, least common multiple again, if you were only here last week when I explained it to Armand. And so I did two things. And actually, and this kind of goes to the scaling back notion. So the first idea, and I still think this is a big idea, and this is actually where a lot of the resources of Khan Academy are going now, after my meeting with Bill. I said, you know what? The hard part is assigning problems for them. It was this notion of if they did a problem, I didn't know what steps they were missing. I couldn't keep track of their homework. So I started writing little software modules for them to do. And very few people realized this was actually the start of the Khan Academy. It was pure software where I would have them work on my little JavaScript software modules on a little website that I set up. And I didn't trust that they said that they were doing the problem, so I put a little database behind it, and I made it, keep track of them and all of that. And so I thought this was the school of the future. Just with the software, just with the hints, you would have this adaptive learning, and I still think there's something there, but I still was doing it wasn't replacing me, and I'm like, this is not going to scale. I'm still trying to schedule around karate practice and soccer practice and all of that. And so a buddy of mine, literally just, we were just having dinner, and he's like, oh, this is really cool what you're doing, but have you ever thought about doing YouTube videos? And I thought it was ridiculous. I said, that's for dogs on skateboards. That's not a serious place to actually transmit information. But once I got over kind of the idea that it wasn't my idea, I said, well, let me give it a shot. And so literally, I mean, there's me sitting in, at the time, our office room, and thinking, and actually by this point we had moved out to the Bay Area. And I was like, okay, I'm going to make a video. I'm going to put it up on YouTube. And I'm looking at like the YouTube. Okay, it has to be 10 minutes long. That's the limit on YouTube. And then I look around the room, and I said, well, no video camera. So do I buy one? I was like, no, that's too expensive. And so I said, well, with Nadia, she didn't see my face. It was just me and her on the phone, and we could see each other's writing. And I said, well, I could probably figure out something. So I literally got a piece of shareware that does screen capture. I think it's called Screen Video Recorder 2. I think they have 3 out now. And I opened up literally Microsoft Paint, and I made the background black, and I did the first video on least common multiples for my cousins. And a couple of interesting things happened right after that, and very, very unintuitive things, frankly, even from my point of view. When I assumed, even the software, and especially the videos, the silly YouTube thing, I assumed there's no way that this is going to be anywhere near as good as a live, in-person, with your cousin session or lecture, the kind of the expensive version. But a couple of things happened. One, I put it out there. I made it public. Anyone could access it. And so it became clear that random people started to watch the videos. So I expected 3 people to watch it. 10 people would watch it one week. And then the next week, 20 people, and so on and so forth. And then I started getting letters. And some of the letters would be like, thanks, this really helped. Or I got an A on my exam because of this. But then I started getting letters, I'm not going to drop out of high school because of these videos. Or I now have the confidence after graduating from or after leaving the military to actually go back to college. Because there's actually, if you haven't seen math in 14 years, there's actually nothing out there to remediate yourself, to get back to that level. And that's actually what leads to a lot of the attrition rate that you see in community colleges. So I said, wow, this is mind-blowing. I'm not doing anything, and these videos are just out there teaching people. But maybe the more profound thing was actually the feedback that my cousins gave me. They told me that they prefer me on YouTube to in person. And once I got over kind of the backhanded compliment nature of that feedback, what they were saying was incredibly profound. Because whenever we think about things scaling or automating things or creating things that have 0 incremental delivery costs, which is what YouTube is or what even software is, there's an implicit assumption that it's probably nice, it's probably good, it's better than nothing because it's 0 incremental delivery cost. But there's no way that it's going to be better than the live, expensive, resource-scarce version of it. And what they were telling me is they actually preferred the free version. They preferred the 0 incremental cost version. And put Khan Academy in particular aside, the more you think about it, it's kind of obvious. these sessions, and I could feel it, they were tangibly stressful for my cousins. They're actually tangibly stressful for me. I would say, Nadia, do you get this? And there'd be these kind of this pregnant pause, and you know, she's like, yes. And it was this very difficult, she was feeling judged, even though I tried to create this environment where she wasn't judged. But it's a stressful thing where you have another human being at a table with you trying to assess your abilities or trying to assess what to cover next. Or if you're embarrassed that you actually need remediation, but you're not going to ask your cousin who already thinks the world of you. That sometimes that positive feedback can sometimes be disabling because this person already thinks so highly of me. If I ask them I forgot about negative numbers, that actually might undermine the relationship. So now they can pause, they can repeat. They don't have to take notes. They can watch when they want to watch at 2 in the morning. They don't have to schedule around everybody's time. And then there's another thing that happened. You know, on the other track here, I got these notes from people. And it was actually very, very interesting because I got 2 types of notes from 2 very different constituencies. I would get notes from students, the people who are actually using it, says, this is exactly what I needed. I love the fact that I feel like there's a human talking to me. I love the fact that it's clear that you're just a guy in your bedroom, probably, you know, wearing your pajamas, teaching me, as opposed to some bureaucracy. Instead of some publishing company, it feels like there's a human on it. It feels more intimate than any other interaction they've ever had. And the other point of feedback, or the other feedback I would get, were from venture capitalists and publishing companies and experts in education saying, oh, this is a cute thing that you have here. Have you ever thought about making it more produced, making it better? Adding computer graphics, getting a video camera in there. And there were moments where we actually played with that notion, but every point of feedback we got from the students was, don't do that. And the reality there is the purer we made things, the simpler we made things. There's a video where literally, and this was, you know, early on where I thought it was only my cousins who were gonna watch the video, where I answer a telemarketer call during the video. And I'm sorry, I don't want dish networks. You could probably find it if you dig around the videos enough. But people love that. Like, that's something that normally you would hire an editing crew and pay them, you know, X $100 an hour to edit out. But people love the humanity of that. Most of the videos you go on Khan Academy right now, I have not prepared for. I literally put the problem up there and I do it in real time. And I've gotten feedback after feedback from students saying how refreshing that is. Because even when you go into a live a session with a teacher, what is the teacher? I mean, the teacher's done that problem 20 years in a row, and they've solved the solution, and they just go to the board, and they're like, you know, blah, 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 blah. It's obvious from step A, B, C, D, E, and then you feel silly that it wasn't that obvious for you, even if you knew how to do it. And what they see me doing is someone who, you know, probably knows math pretty well, but I sometimes stumble with things. I sometimes go down the wrong direction. They see the art of problem solving. It's not always this mechanical march to the end of the problem, and it's okay to make mistakes. People really appreciate that humanity in it. And so, I think there's, and so it was clear that this was a model. It was very easy to produce, and by making it very easy to produce, it was actually connecting with more people. But the other point of feedback, and this is, you know, I would go to parties, and I was still working at a hedge fund at this point, and I'd meet my MBA friends, and like, oh, Sal, this is cute what you're doing and everything, and I'm sure your cousins appreciate it, and it's really nice how you've done it, but there's no way that this is going to scale. Over and over, there's no way this is going to, you're one guy who's just putting on stuff, like, there's so much to teach. There's so much, and it was just, you should make a platform. And you should make a platform, and then you should aggregate other people's videos, and then that will be the solution of the future. And you can even see some of them when they're, you know, they thought it was such a brilliant idea, they were ready to go home and write a business plan about it. And I actually believed them. I was like, oh, you know, you're right, you know, but, you know, this is fun. I feel I'm getting, it's satisfying just for me. I get to help my cousins. It's kind of a legacy I get to leave behind. And sometimes I would actually try to recruit a lot of my friends. Say, hey, can you join me? We're going to, you know, if we can get 100 of us, we'll actually be able to teach everything. And it was just hard to do. So I said, you know, I'm just going to keep going. But the interesting thing that happened is after about 100 videos, and these are 110-minute videos, I was like, that's algebra. That's all of algebra, or pretty much all of algebra. And then after another 100, that's pretty much trigonometry. And then another 100 videos, that's pretty much calculus. And another unobvious thing, whenever people talk about doing anything, especially on the internet, they always talk about, you know, this is the whole topic right here, scalability. And we always think that, you know, software scales, reach, things like YouTube scales, but content doesn't scale. You hear that over and over again. Content does not scale. And that's true if you're making a blog or if you're like a news site. But education content is unbelievably scalable. It's actually more scalable than the software. If Isaac Newton had done calculus videos on YouTube, I would have nothing to do, assuming he's good. And so so you know, the more you think about it, when I do stuff like this, hopefully many of y'all start doing stuff like this, generations can use these videos. You only have to have one really good lecture on L'Hopital's rule, or maybe two. You don't need an army of 1,000 people doing lectures on L'Hopital's rule. So what I want to kind of just leave y'all with, you know, and hopefully it'll get your own juices flowing on something like this. One, I just want to kind of leave a thought in your head, and then I really just a question. You saw in the video, I mean, Bill Gates' kids use this, and this reinforces the idea. I mean, this is my average cost of producing a video, if you don't count my time, is pretty much zero. And if you add my time, you know, you can whatever, you can calculate some number. But Bill Gates can afford tutors. and so, but his kids are still using this. So the cheapest possible thing to produce, the thing that's scalable, is being used by one of the richest, most well-heeled people ever on the face of the planet. And so it raises a very profound thought that for the first time in history, and it's weird to think about things like, think about something as silly as YouTube in the context of Gutenberg and the printing press and cuneiform and all of the rest. But because of something like YouTube and the internet, for the first time in history, the same exact education and preparation that the children of the most well-heeled person on the planet is getting, we can give that for zero incremental cost to kids in East Palo Alto, or kids in Kabul, or kids in the slums of Calcutta. And so, with that said, I really just want to kind of throw out a question, and I talk about this with my wife and the people who've joined me at the Khan Academy every day. How come no one else is doing this? I mean, I look around every day. I mean, there's some for-profit stuff. It's silly. I mean, but there's no, the great professors out there have not realized, who's this joker Sal? He's got there, he's getting to have meetings with Bill Gates just because he knows a little bit of algebra and can teach photosynthesis here or there. How come no one else is doing this? So I'll leave you all there. Thanks.